Welcome to the virtual lunch. Today is Wednesday, July 15th. This is virtual lunch number 88. And Night Owl is our wonderful sponsor today. I'm so grateful for the support, and we are hugely honored that Patricia Refo is our guest today.
My practice is at Snell and Wilmer in Phoenix. I'm a commercial litigator, but I do a fair amount of legal malpractice defense work, but do other things as well. I've been at Snell for 24 years. I started my career at Jenner & Block in Chicago. So I've seen practice in two terrific large firms in two quite different cities. And I got started in the American Bar Association because a senior partner, when I was a very young lawyer at Jenner, just sort of looked at me and said, "This is what you do. You join the American Bar Association." And I did. I got involved as a young lawyer and sort of never stopped. The joy of it for me as a young lawyer, as a kid lawyer, was that I got to hang out with some of the legends of the generation or half generation ahead of me. I had the opportunity in my very early years of practice to meet and interact with true giants of the litigation world in those days. One of whom, regrettably, we lost yesterday, Steve Sussman. I met him when I was a little dweeb because of the American Bar Association. So that's what got me started, and frankly, that's what kept me involved. It makes you a better lawyer, and I loved it. You know, I was talking to some young lawyers not long ago, and one of them commented about Bar Association stuff. You know, when I go to a Bar Association meeting, it feels like everybody who's there is older than I am. And I remember responding to that person sort of saying, me too, when I started. I took full advantage of it, and you should too. That's what can help you stick out. I think there are opportunities in this crazy moment that we're living right now that are unique and that young lawyers especially should jump on. The virtual world allows people to be together in a very different way. One of the things that we're trying to do at the ABA is not change direction every year with a new president. There was a time back in the old days when that happened a little bit, and we're working hard to sort of flatten the curve, if you want to put it that way, so that the mission of the ABA remains the same. The work of the ABA remains the same regardless of the person who's president. What I do have an opportunity to do as president is to select what are the things I choose to talk about, because the American Bar Association does so much work in so many different areas that you could talk about something different literally every day if you wanted to take that approach. The things that I'm going to be talking about and the things that the ABA emphasis is going to be on in the next 12 months revolve around a couple of incredibly important topics. The first of which is anti-racism and racial equity and all of the issues that have been brought to the fore. Again, addressing diversity in our profession, policing, the whole panoply of issues. Our call now is to step up and do more and work even harder. The second set of issues, of course, is around the pandemic, addressing the legal needs of our underserved population, eviction and immigration, access to justice issues in a whole host and variety of places and ways, working to rally both pro bono lawyers and the legal services community and other NGOs. Related to that, but different, is the whole series of topics about what the heck is happening to the practice of law. I've learned a completely different way to practice law. I left my office 4 months ago with a laptop and a file of paper about this thick. I haven't been back. All that stuff that is sitting in my office, it turns out, I guess I don't really need any of it. How are we going to be practicing law in 6 months? Will we still be largely at home? Will we ever go back? If we don't, then what happens to our communities? How do we mentor and raise up young lawyers? How do we address the additional ethics issues that arise? The American Bar Association is the place that will drive the change and the conversation. The ABA is really big, and on the other hand, because it has so many different small parts, is small at the same time. That is our great strength, is that we do both at once. a practice area and practice setting that's very small and niche, I promise you that there are folks at the ABA who do that same work, and that there is a committee or a subcommittee somewhere that you can connect with. You can jump on CLEs and webinars and listen to some of the leading lawyers literally in the world, and you can also interact with them in small groups by way of the receptions that occur afterwards, the subgroups around practice areas and sometimes around geography. I think Free Legal Answers is an opportunity that's open to non-lawyers as well. It's now operating in almost all of our states, and it's a space in which someone who has a legal question can post their question, and lawyers who are licensed in that state and wish to volunteer can look through the questions and identify one that they choose to answer. There are plenty of ways to help people in smaller bites. The more you can be flexible about what your career goals are and what path you want to take, the more opportunities will be open to you. If you decide that you only want to be an antitrust lawyer in one of the giant law firms in New York, that is a very narrow sort of path and focus, and that's going to be harder to do in this coming environment. The legal needs of our country are going to be so enormous in the months and years ahead as we come out of and begin recovering from this pandemic, that there will be no shortage of need for lawyers. If we all put our focus on identifying through technology and other mechanisms ways for lawyers to deliver legal services in a manner that is cost-effective and efficient for the average American, we would be doing a huge service. Lawyers have been part of solving and identifying and correcting the problems that our country faces for centuries. It is the lawyers who have stepped up and said, we can help with that, we can make a difference, and we got to do that now for all the same reasons that our predecessors did it in the civil rights movement, in the suffragette movement. So let's do it again. One of the challenges that I think we got to look at is this notion that your physical location as a lawyer determines whether you are practicing law in a state or not. That, I believe, is something that we as a profession need to get right, and we haven't yet. And maybe this environment will allow us to move forward on changing those rules that are frankly really out of pace with what the real world virtually is doing. I just don't see why, if my clients are in one state and the work I'm doing for them is around the law in that state, the fact that I am doing that work somewhere else ought to be relevant to the regulatory conversation. I will tell you that right before we all went into lockdown, I was in Australia, and I visited with a number of Australian law schools, and I gave the keynote address at the Australian Bar Association meeting and had a bunch of meetings with bar leaders and whatnot. Then it all got shut down. So all of the things that would ordinarily be part of the fall for the incoming American Bar Association president aren't happening. So we are on the phone, we are on Zoom, and as travel permits, I will get on a plane and go. And one thing that I have, however, made really clear to the amazing professionals on the staff of the ABA is that if the presence of the office of the president of the American Bar Association will make a difference at any event anywhere in the world to advance the rule of law and move the needle on important issues, I will go. And I'm not afraid to get on a plane, to go to wherever the office needs to be, to stand up for things around the independence of the judiciary, the importance of the rule of law, and the other principles that the American Bar Association has spent truly decades taking around the world in a very important piece of our mission. We are an important symbol and convener for places all over the world, and some of them are pretty dark places where the ABA works. We're presently working, actively working right now in more than 30 countries on grant-funded work on any number of important topics, some of which we can talk about out loud and some of which we choose not to, but really deeply important work of which I'm very proud.
Thank you to you. Thank you to Night Owl Global for their support. And I just wanted to just give a clap and just to say, wow. And